is we'll get started here in a moment. So welcome to today's professional development session that is for eLearning on creative quizzing in Canvas. We will be using Webex, which is our tool today. And it looks like we have some attendees here, so thank you for joining us. We will have some interactive questions that hopefully you will participate in throughout the session. So Stephanie, can I go ahead and begin?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So, like I said, we are using Webex, and I wanted to give you a brief overview of what Webex is before we get started. So it's a wonderful web conferencing tool that easily integrates within Canvas. You can use this for synchronous and asynchronous sessions with your class. Some of the features of Webex include real-time polling, virtual breakout rooms, quizzes, threaded Q&As, and attention monitoring tools. Webex offers a variety of products with varying measures of control. Today we're going to be using the Event Center. Event Center is designed to facilitate meetings for hundreds of people. This has the highest level of control and unfortunately the least level of interactive tools. The reason we use it is because we need to make sure that all attendees register. However, other products offer more freedom for participants. For example, my Webex is appropriate for open one-on-one conversations and file sharing. Hello, can you still hear me?
We can hear you. There was a little bit of disturbance.
All right, I apologize for that. The meeting center is good for small groups, maybe 6 to 9 people, and the training center is good for a whole class. So these features allow them to join via mobile app during a synchronous and asynchronous session in a class. So these products are free for all FAU instructors, and there'll be resources on how to get trained using Webex and those type of materials at the end of this session. So let me just click over to the next slide. So that was the my Webex slide. I apologize I didn't show that sooner. So today our host and moderator, Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie. If you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and she will let me know that you have questions, and I'll go ahead and she can unmute you and you can speak. Please feel free to share any stories or anything like that where you have used Canvas in your class. We'd like to hear some testimonials or some challenges that we can provide solutions to. You guys can chat with others and just let me know if you would like to be unmuted via the chat. But today's topic is, like I said, creative quizzing in Canvas. The two questions we want to ask today is why is it important to get creative, and how can I get creative with quizzing? So why is it important? Why do we need to make it creative and make it engaging for students? And then how to actually go about doing that? Those are the things we want to address today. So the objectives, I'm getting up and down. I apologize for that. I'm in the baby Canvas today, so doing a virtual professional development session, and I'm using the podium to have the camera, which is mounted on the wall, and the lavalier microphone, so you can hear me, project the screen today. So that's why I'm getting up and clicking to the next slide. But the objectives for today are to identify the purpose of an assessment, differentiate between traditional and authentic learning, create quality multiple choice questions, and utilize Canvas quizzes for non-assessment items. So those are the things we're going to cover today. So before we get started, if you do have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and Stephanie will let me know. If you want me to address them throughout, I can go ahead and do that. Or if you would like me to answer it at the end, to see if I answer it throughout the presentation, just let Stephanie know. So the first question is, why are we quizzing students in the first place? So we want to make sure that we're using quizzes in Canvas effectively. We want to make sure that we need to be using a quiz to assess whatever content we are providing to them. We want to make sure that when we're using Canvas quizzes that it aligns to the objective that we set within the course. So those are going to be the identify, the recognize, multiple choice, and that type of quizzing. Those are the type of objectives that we're going to get with a multiple choice quiz. Now, there are ways in Canvas to do a more authentic assessment of knowledge that address more of the higher level Bloom's taxonomy work that we'll get to later in the presentation.
Nicole?
Yes.
We do have a comment from Miss Judy, which she
Yes.
says to guide their learning.
Yes, very good, thank you, yes. So we definitely want to quiz students to guide their learning. We want to make sure that they are ready to move on to the next module. Thank you, Dr. Summers, that was very good in making sure that we don't just say we're going to do something and then we don't make sure that we are actually assessing that. As part of the alignment that we do with the Center for eLearning when we're building courses, we have an alignment that we do through our blueprint process. So that's definitely good. So we want to make sure if we're having them describe a concept, that there's a question in the Canvas quiz somewhere that asks them to describe that concept. We want to make sure that we are actually getting at what we want them to know. So there's no preset determination saying that if you have this objective, this is the way you have to assess them. And that's the awesome thing about building a course online, is there's a ton of different ways that you can assess a student's knowledge of a concept or achievement of that objective through Canvas quizzes. And that's something that we want to talk to you about today, where you have the power as faculty member and instructors on assessing that student's knowledge and whether or not they have met that objective through these types of assessments. Any questions about the why we quiz and why we assess students in the first place? We want to make sure that we don't have unnecessary quizzes, right? We want to make sure that all of the assessment items we're doing are for the student's best interest, right? So we want to make sure that we're not putting it in there because the publisher gave us the resource. We want to make sure that it aligns and is purposeful for the student to meet that objective and to know that they have met that objective. So the next topic I want to talk about is traditional versus authentic assessments. So when you think of multiple choice questions, generally it's the routine regurgitation of information, what was in the textbook, what can I identify in a quiz? And to be honest, that's a more traditional look, right? So in the Venn diagram I have there, traditional is more about recall, regurgitating that information, versus authentic assessment is more about action. Traditional assessments are generally quick, right? They're conventional, so that's kind of potentially a benefit to the traditional component of traditional assessments. The authentics are a little more thoughtful, a little more creative. The traditional ones, a lot of the time, have chance, depending on if it's multiple choice. They have a 1 out of 4 chance of getting it correct. But the authentic is more about the challenge. What challenge are they proposed? What can they solve? The traditional is more random in terms of the alignment that we were discussing earlier. It may not align to the content specifically or the objective that you have set. And authentic is more about making sure that alignment is there. And in general, again, this is not all the time. These are just some things that I pulled from research, which will be presented at the end of the presentation. I'll have all my references there. That traditional is generally timed, where authentic is generally untimed, because it requires a bit more thought. So those are kind of the assessment trends that we're dealing with today. And how can we apply that to Canvas quizzes is what we're going to go into. So are there any questions about authentic versus traditional assessment? Any comments that anyone would like to add? So here's some questions when we're creating assessments. So not from the publisher or not from any materials, but when we're either modifying OER materials or something like that, we want to make sure that the assessments are still aligning with the content that we're presenting. So the first question to always ask yourself is, does it align? Am I doing this for a purpose? And then the sub-question to that is, are students performing the verb I set in the objective? Are they actually identifying that concept? Are they defining that concept? Are they describing the concept? What are they actually doing within that Canvas quiz? And does it align to the objective? So the first thing to ask yourself as you're building an assessment item, Hello, how can we help you?
The eLearning?
Yes, are you here for the professional development session?
Yes.
Okay, one moment, we have a guest here. So we are recording live through the camera. So if you want to come around and have a seat, we can get you logged in. And what was your name?
Olu.
Olu?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and have a seat right here. We can get you logged in. I'm going to zoom out the camera just so they can see both of us and not just me. So, like we were saying, we are asking ourselves questions on how to create well thought out assessment items. So the second set of questions, let me know if, okay. The second set of questions we want to ask ourselves is, can I make it scenario based? And this goes back to that authentic versus traditional assessment that we talked about in the last slide. We want to make sure that if it's something where we can have that application piece to it, why not? It may take a little bit more time to think about a scenario, to think about, how it would impact the real world, but that's the trend of that authentic assessment. What is the action they would have to take? And even if it's a multiple choice type question, giving them the scenario and asking them what they would do is a way to be creative in your Canvas quizzes. So can you make it that scenario-based question? And if so, what are the different items that you would put? What are the different action items? Maybe in the textbook or in the content it talks about different ways to handle a situation. Maybe you put the different ways to handle that situation in the answers, and then having the feedback in a Canvas feedback question. So maybe if they're not wrong, but maybe there's different ways to handle a situation in different times. And then the last question that I'll talk about today in creating well thought out questions. Can you still hear me? Is does the question come directly from the course material? A lot of the times, you can see where in chapter 1, page 8, it talks about this, and then it has that exact sentence in the assessment. And we kind of want to avoid that, just so we know that students are having to critically think about the concept and less about, copy and pasting or looking and regurgitating. We want them to think about that concept. So even if there is something on page 8 that's really, really important, think about putting that concept into a scenario. Where will they encounter that? And that applies to all different disciplines. Later in this presentation, I'll go through a little bit of authentic assessment examples that you can use in a multiple choice quizzing or Canvas quizzing type scenario. And we do have a lot of resources that we will provide at the end on writing effective quiz questions, especially for the multiple choice. Now, I say quiz, and I don't always mean multiple choice. In Canvas, you have tons of opportunity to quiz students without using the multiple choice option. There's the short answer, the drop down, there's a multiple answer. I personally like the multiple answer because it makes them consider each and every answer option and then make a decision. So that's kind of why I like the multiple answer option. Does anyone else have some tips and tricks to creating well thought out questions they would like to add?
Can you hear me, Nicole?
Yes.
Okay, so Miss Judy was saying short answers, maybe?
Yes, that's a really awesome one. That really gets them to critically think and to bring up their own thought processes onto what they would do in that scenario. So it's not always about the multiple choice. And I know that grading short answer might seem like a lengthy task, depending on the number of students you have, but a lot of the times you can provide them with immediate feedback in the feedback section of the Canvas quiz answer to give them that reinforcement or the adjustment that they need right after the assessment. And then when you're going in to grade it, you can provide a little bit more feedback into their particular answer. That's something else you can do within Canvas, which is really, really nice. And I'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Drum roll, this is where we're getting to. I'm going to go ahead and change the slide.
Can you hear me, Nicole?
Yes.
So we did have Judy add something. She said also saving the answers.
Yeah, you may reuse answers with other students' short answers too. So you can save your responses and adjust them and change them around a little bit for other students as well.
Yes, to save time, giving that feedback. Is that what you're leaning towards? Yeah, because a lot of the times you'll see, especially in those short answer questions, and I think this is what Dr. Summers is referring to, that students will have common themes in their responses, depending on the content that you presented. So it's like Dr. Summers said, you may want to save that feedback that you're giving them and modify it for the particular student, given their situation or their response. Thank you for adding that. Wonderful. So, like I said, drum roll is the examples of authentic assessment in a Canvas quiz type setting. So, I think I'm going to have to share my screen. Actually, I'll talk a little bit about them and then I'll show you the examples. So, in Canvas, you can do something where you give them, for biology courses, like an intro to biology course. So a lot of the time, authentic assessment in like biology can seem like, how am I going to create an authentic assessment in a Canvas quiz with a subject like biology? And so what my research has found is that you can do different things like a diet analysis of an animal or something like that, where you give them maybe, you know, the contents in the stomach or the different types of chemicals that are apparent, and then ask them, you know, what reactions would take place, or where is this animal from, or different things like that, where you can get them to think critically based on a situation or scenario that you provide them in the question. And so I think that that's something that we can maybe get over the, you know, how do I get science and authentic assessment in a Canvas quiz? It's just about using creativity to bring those scenarios to life. And then I have another, was there a question? The other thing is education. So education is awesome, and I really like this because it's kind of like an inception type concept, is to ask the students to themselves create an authentic assessment, depending on the topic that you're presenting at that moment. So let's say you're teaching pre-service teachers and you want them to assess their, you know, middle school students on a certain topic. You can ask them to think about how they would assess their future students in an authentic way. And I think that that's a really awesome tool to get the students to start thinking about how they would implement an authentic piece like that. I have one for journalism. So journalism, I think, is really, really unique. And so what you can have them do in a Canvas quiz is maybe have them highlight different areas of a news segment, or, you know, pull out the key concepts or pull out the controversial issues in a news segment to get them analyzing and thinking. So there's ways to get to those higher level Bloom's taxonomy and align them to those verbs while doing a Canvas quiz. And it's all about the creativity, which is what this professional development session is about. I have a couple more. So music, so maybe they compose or write some music and submit it to a Canvas quiz. There is a file upload quiz option. This also is helpful for math. So if they need to show their work on a math problem, maybe they submit their answer to you know, a short answer or something like that. But then they also upload a document at the end of the quiz with all their work. It just kind of depends on how you want to use that. Ecology, so there's I read on a resource that I'll provide to you at the end of this, and a really awesome website that has all of these examples that I'm giving you today of an at-home experiment and then submitting a reflection report. Maybe, you know, each question highlights a different area of the report, something that will provide them with immediate feedback, but also give them that depth of analysis where you can tell that they've actually done that authentic assessment, they've done the experiment, and you're asking them about how that went, like you would on a lab report. And then psychology. So it's the last one I have for you guys, and then I'll open it to the floor to see if you guys can give examples of authentic assessment in your subject area, and see if we can help you if I haven't addressed your subject area already. So psychology is to do a behavioral analysis on a scenario. So have them apply what they're learning in their courses to an actual scenario and have them analyze that. So those are the ones that I have based on the research that I've done, on different ways you can include authentic assessment in a Canvas quiz scenario. So I'm going to open the floor to see if anyone else would like to share how they could apply their authentic assessment in their course or subject area, or if you just want to share what your subject area is, maybe we can provide you with some examples.
Nicole,
Yes.
you were referring to scenarios for, I think you said psychology, but it seems to me that that could also apply, case studies could apply with almost any content area.
Yes, yes, thank you for bringing that up. So Dr. Summers had mentioned that case studies can be applied to almost every content area, right? There's always something where, you know, this happens in the real world where you can apply the concept given a case. So thank you for pointing that out. That is really, really important. All right, I will continue on. If you think of, hello?
Hello, Nicole. It's Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. How are you?
I'm well. Sorry I was late to the party.
No, thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Great session, really. Lots of good information. I do have a couple of ideas. I have taught education courses. I've taught undergrad and graduate teaching and principal licensure. And so some of the things that I've done that may give people an idea is to have my students who are taking supervision or administration courses filling out a sample evaluation based on a scenario, fill out or write a letter to the superintendent or a letter from the principal to the school, the parents, anything that really allows the student to get the essence of reality, right? So it's really putting them in the driver's seat and saying, okay, this is something that you are going to have to do. So here's your shot at it. Let's have a go in a safe environment. So yes, so lesson plans, evaluations, you know, it goes well beyond just creating a lesson plan, but you know, sort of like a different situation where how would you handle this setup with students or filling out this special ed form. All of these pieces come to mind.
Wonderful.
Just to give other people ideas, but.
No, I think that's fantastic. And even if, so those are really great, like assignments, submissions, and things like that. If we wanted to move it into a quiz, let's say, potentially we give them examples in the quiz question of, you know, here's an example letter, identify the different components, or something like that, where they still get that experience of seeing a real authentic assessment and then evaluating it. So there's different scenarios. So the next part, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that. I'm going to get up and change the slide. So what to include in a question? So we have to be extra clear in what we're asking if we want the correct response. We want to make sure that we are clear in the words we use, in the jargon that we provide. Anything that we may have not presented in the content before, we want to make sure that we explain in the question so that the students answer what you're asking. So it's really, really important that we're clear. I know that I've seen when, you know, you think that it's a really great question that you've clarified as much as you can, and then you get 30 different types of responses. And so a really good thing with that is to be as clear as possible in the question itself to give them exactly what you're looking for. We don't want to give them the answer, right? So I'm not saying put the answer in there for them, but we'll get to that in a moment. Hold that thought. We want to make sure that we're being as clear as possible to give them the best chance of getting it correct and applying their knowledge. The second thing that I know I've talked about probably every couple minutes in this session is alignment. We want them to know how getting this question right or answering this question or applying this concept is going to get them to meet the objectives that were set in that module. So that's really, really important. and I won't talk about that too much because I think I talked about that a lot already, but the feedback. So in Canvas, you have the option to provide immediate feedback for your students. And you don't necessarily have to explain the whole reason why or the whole concept within that that feedback section, but giving them little nuggets of, you know, the reason this answer was because this. And then maybe you explain a little more when you provide them with feedback, either an announcement, a review of the quiz, or, you know, a synchronous session, something like that where you can go over the answer maybe a little bit more in depth. So providing that immediate feedback is really, really important when we're doing Canvas quizzes, so that they know, you know, did I get that right? Did I get that wrong? What's next? What could I have done? So those types of questions kind of answer themselves. And there's a ton of other things you should include in the question, but these are more of the overall concepts that I thought were important. I'm going to switch to the next slide. So, as I was mentioning before, I had mentioned that, you know, we don't want to give them the answer in the question, but what if we gave them the answer and asked them to explain why that is the answer? And that's a creative way, instead of the traditional define this concept, identify this concept. Give them something different in this multiple choice or multiple answer, drop down, select anything type quiz. So give them the answer and say, please explain why this is the answer. Or, you know, 2 + 2 = 4, why? You know, something like that. To give them, so they have the answer and you're getting deeper into that critical thinking, getting deeper into that analyzing the concept, analyzing the question, which is those higher level Bloom's taxonomy, where oftentimes multiple choice questions are thought of as more of the lower level Bloom's taxonomy. So providing them with the answer and asking them to explain why or identifying the components of why, things like that. So that's one way to do it. The second idea is to make a video. So there's the trend out there, or the, you know, the thought that students don't read, right? Or they don't read for detail, or, you know, there's that myth. If we want to attack that, maybe in the question itself, we post a video, like we were saying, those case scenarios in the quiz question. And so we have them watch the video, answer the question. Now this goes back to that authentic versus traditional Venn diagram that I had in the beginning, where I talked about timed versus untimed. It may take them time to watch the video, really understand what's going on, especially if it's like the psychology example that I had given before, a behavioral analysis of a situation. It may take them time to watch that, maybe a couple of times, to really get the concept and then answer the question that you're asking based on that video. Or you can make a video of yourself. Make it fun. Make it, you know, interesting. Make it creative, which is what this session is all about. Make it a little interesting. The next thing that I'm going to go to is paint a picture or an image. So what I mean by paint a picture is give them the surrounding information, right? The surrounding information of a concept and asking them to fill in the blanks, which is an option in Canvas, but in the Canvas quizzes. But we want to give them, paint the picture for them. Maybe not give them the whole scenario, but then have them fill in the missing pieces. So if they need to, you know, do a project, you know, what are the pieces of that project that are missing or that they need to ask, or somewhere where it gets them critically thinking about what's missing, which a lot of the time we forget. A lot of the times we assess what is there, what is in the content, but often we forget about the concept of what's not there, what's missing, you know, what lens are we not looking through. And that's something that we can do with that option. Or I say image, that kind of combines these, which literally means give them an image, you know, give them a situation to analyze that's maybe a stagnant image depending on your field, whether it's, you know, a diagram of a cell, or really it could be anything. So that's another way to be a little bit novel in your questions. Mix it up. Don't have all multiple choice. You know, that's a cool way to mix it up. Or if you are doing all multiple choice, do a scenario, do an image, do a video, you know, mix it up, make it interesting. Will it take them a little bit longer to complete? Probably, but that's getting at that authentic assessment. It's not getting at the recall, the chance where they get, you know, 1 out of 4 or whatever to get that question right. So mix it up, make it interesting. Realistic distractors. This is really, really important. The likelihood of your students getting the right answer is dependent on whether or not the other options are plausible. If they're not, you're giving them the answer. And that goes back to the other slide where I said we don't want them to give them the answer. We want to be clear, but we also want to give them realistic distractors. So maybe there's a situation where they could handle it in multiple ways, but because of maybe one area in the question, it would be better to handle it this way. And that's kind of what I mean by realistic distractors. Don't make it like ridiculous, because that's not really assessing their knowledge. It's assessing how well they take exams or how well they can eliminate possibilities. We really want to get at, can they answer the questions to the objective that we have set? Can they perform that verb that we have set for them? Does anyone else have any maybe novel ideas that they want to share with us? If not, that's okay. I know we are about 10 minutes and I got a couple more slides to show you, so I'm going to move it right along. Okay, so we've created our questions. We know why we're doing it. We have these mix of different types of questions. We have it all planned. Now, how do we get it into Canvas, right? So there's a couple things that we like to share with instructors is Canvas guides. They are fantastic. They are built by Canvas. They have a lot of the community involved in it too with comments and suggestions, and they provide you step by step with pictures, diagrams on how to do a lot of this stuff in Canvas. So that's probably the first place if you need a quick answer is go ahead and search Canvas Instructor Guide. Probably your answer is there. If not, reach out to the Center for eLearning. We would be happy to help you out with that. Question banks. Question banks are super important to randomize the questions. So if you have multiple concepts you're testing on in an exam, you might want to break it out into different sections and then have each exam pull maybe like 3 or 4 from this section and 3 or 4 from that section. So it's different every time for every student. And that gets at the academic integrity component of this. So that's really important as well. So the other thing with question banks is, as our wonderful instructional designer, Kathy, pointed out, is the naming conventions. A lot of the times what may happen is, let's say we did put a video in a question. What if that video link stops working? How will you know in the 100 questions you've created in your question bank which one has the video? It's important to name them, number them, use something standard like exam 1 underscore like Q1. So you know this is exam 1, Q1. You may also want to put the course ID number, so like ABC 1000 at the end, so you know what course it's coming from. And that's kind of a naming convention you can use throughout each exam. And you can also put at the end, so you have exam 1, Q1, ABC 1000, and then maybe it's talking about a specific concept. You don't want to put the whole thing to give the question and answer away, but something where you know where it's pulling from, so you can go into the question bank and grab that specific question and make any changes you need. A lot of the times in the government and politics courses, a leader will change, and you need to go back and change that specific question. It's easy to know that that was Q5 in exam 2, and you can go right to it and make the adjustments you need. So that's really important when you're building out your creative quizzes in Canvas. And then come see us. We are happy to help you develop these quiz questions. We're happy to help you implement them into Canvas. You know, we have open labs Mondays and Fridays, 8 to 5, on Broward, Jupiter, and Bowie campuses. You can always schedule a consultation, email iDesign@fau.edu, and we can meet with you virtually, in person, on your schedule. So that's something really important that I think for the implementation piece. That's probably, in my perspective, the easiest part of this, is actually getting it into Canvas. The most challenging part from my perspective is thinking about how to be creative when you're creating the questions. How do you create a quality, new, novel, creative question, and then putting it into Canvas is something we can easily help you with. Okay, I'm going to move right along because I know I only got a few more minutes left. So there's other ways to use Canvas quizzes besides assessments, although that is the most traditional form of Canvas quizzes. I think we may have a guest. May just be the door. There's other ways to use the Canvas quiz. So if you want students to be able to practice their knowledge, make a quick self-check. Maybe it's extra credit. Maybe it's something that they can just get some feedback on quickly without getting to the full exam. So maybe you use that. Maybe it's extra credit, no credit. Practice exams, maybe use some exams you had from the past or something like that to give them that opportunity to check their knowledge without the fear of a high-stakes assessment. Do low-stakes types of assessments that you can use Canvas quizzes. Polls. Polls are something that, let's say you want to do a synchronous session in an online class and you want to know when the best time is for everyone. Throw it into a Canvas quiz. That way you have all the answers you need there. You can also use other things like Doodle or things like that to gauge that, but it's an option. Or if you want to poll, what topics do they like best, or what resource was the most helpful. Maybe at the end of your course, so you know how to adjust for next semester. These are always things that you can use in the Canvas quizzes. Idea generators. So let's say you are looking for new items to put in your course. Ask your students what they want to know. What's an idea that you have that could be included in this course? What would you like to see? What else can I do? And it's a great way to gather information is through these Canvas quizzes. And then feedback. So, we have this thought, we have different things to address our teaching style, but we may want to ask students what their feedback is within the course. And that's something you can also do with the Canvas quizzes. So, these are my references, and again, you'll get a copy of this so you can look through where I got my information. We do have the next PD session coming up, which I don't have it written down on this PowerPoint, but I will tell you a little bit about it based on the calendar. One moment. Well, it's not yet on our calendar, but that's okay. We will get that to you via our listserv. So make sure you're subscribed to our listserv, and we'll get that next professional development session out to you with the information to sign up and register. Are there any questions? I know we got a couple minutes left. Are there any questions or comments? Anything I didn't answer that maybe we can answer in another session, or ideas, or any comments you have on maybe what I said or things to add?
Nicole.
Yes.
The session next week is about the value in using resubmissions, and the following week the session is another one of our absolutely amazing library sessions.
Wonderful. So you had mentioned the next session is on the value of resubmission. Is that correct?
Sorry, what was the question?
I was just clarifying. Is the value of resubmission is the next one?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, thank you. And then the following week will be a library session with us.
Correct.
And we get all that information out via the eLearning listserv.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. So this has been really, really interesting, Nicole. Thank you so much for presenting this topic. Assessment is near and dear to my heart. I'd like to share one of my favorite videos that came to mind when I was listening is called My Favorite No. And the video is set at a middle school. However, it is so relevant to what you are sharing. This teacher, she's a math teacher, and I think with creativity we can take this idea and use it with any subject and at any grade level. But the gist of this is this teacher gives out a math problem to the students. They solve it on a 3x5 card, each one, and they submit their 3x5 cards, and she takes the cards quickly and puts them into piles, you know, correct answers and then incorrect answers. And she picks out her favorite no's. And the reason why she picks them out as her favorite no is because of the way the student solved the problem and the error. And so she displays the error on the screen, and she says it's a favorite of hers, and she tells the students why it's a favorite. So the gist is that the students, and again, we can use this at any grade level, any subject, but the students are able to see a mistake that perhaps they made or not, and hear the teacher explain the mistake and provide a rational reason for fixing the mistake. And her big idea was, look, people make mistakes all the time. Why do we make those mistakes? And she capitalizes on the why behind the mistake. It's really a powerful video. So again, it's called My Favorite No, and it's worth watching.
Wonderful. We'll add that into the resources when we send out the PowerPoint to everyone. So we are about a minute, I think it's actually 1 p.m. now, so I want to thank you for joining us in this session. If you do have any follow-up questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to the Center for eLearning. We would be happy to answer any questions you have. If you would like to come in and create some creative assessments with us, please do so. Again, we have open labs Mondays and Fridays, 8 to 5 on the Broward, Boca, and Jupiter campuses. You can also do one-on-one consultations if you email idesign@fau.edu. So I want to thank you for joining us. And Stephanie, is there anything else we need to address? I don't believe so.
We're all set. Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Have a wonderful day.